Ladies and gentlemen, there are no random acts. The universe is constantly sending us signs. And if we're listening and if we're paying attention, then our path becomes very clear. Let me give you an example. Why does someone move from San Diego to Cleveland? That's a random act. Why does someone do that? And lived in San Diego and near Cleveland, you have to ask, why would you do that? Another random act, having a chance meeting when your son is going into kindergarten with another child and that person's mom. Okay. Now, were these really random acts, or was the universe sending you a sign? Let's discuss that today. My name's Frank Zaccari. This is Life Altering Events, and this is Near-Death Experiences. My guest today is Laura Gray. Now, Laura is the youngest of 8 children. She's a single mom of 3 sons. Sometimes in near-death experience does not occur to us individually. It occurs to somebody else. So in Laura's case, the seemingly series of seemingly random acts changed her life, and it saved another person's life. So let's get to her story right away. Laura, welcome to Life Altering Events.
Hello, Frank. Thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure. We had a real nice conversation a few weeks ago. So the listeners and watchers get an idea of something about you. Could you give us your background, where you grew up, went to school, etc., that type of thing?
Sure. Okay. As you said, I am the youngest of 8 children. I have 5 sisters and 2 brothers, and we grew up in a suburb of Cleveland, Ohio. I graduated from Bowling Green State University, which is in Ohio. And shortly after I graduated from Bowling Green, I moved by myself to San Diego. And I had accepted a position out there at the United Way of San Diego.
Mm-hmm. So that's a big change.
That was yeah, it was. I tell you, now that I look back, I'm like, wow, I don't know how nice I really had it. I have other friends that were getting their first jobs at different companies in different locations, and there I am out in beautiful San Diego, which I know I don't need to tell you because that's where you live now.
Mhm. Yeah, it's amazing. So this was United Way, a charity, opened the
Right.
door up.
United Way. Yes, I was a communications major, and I did some work here locally at Cleveland United Way, which actually kind of enabled me or allowed me to get the position out there. So yeah, moving out there by myself, and met some really great people who I'm still in close contact with now, thanks to the internet and social media. But yeah, so I lived out there for a while, and really, really enjoyed my time there. But while I was living out there, my mother's health wasn't so well. My mother had multiple sclerosis,
Mhm.
and it was very hard for me as the youngest. So my mom was the youngest of 14 children. So my mother and I were very close, and she was very supportive of me and my move and my career. But a plane flight, a 5-hour plane flight, was too far for
Mhm.
me. So I sought and accepted a position actually in Rochester, New York.
Mhm.
Because to me, a 4-hour car ride was much easier to work with than
Right,
the plane flight.
right.
So I lived there for a short time, and as people like to tell me, anywhere I moved after San Diego, no offense, Rochester, but anywhere I moved after San Diego was going to be quite difficult and maybe a letdown, especially moving to Rochester, New York in February.
Oh,
So,
oh, yes.
yeah, yeah, that was quite the change. And again, I had moved there by myself, and I had a wonderful position at that United Way and worked with some awesome people who, again, I'm still in touch with.
Hmm.
But it wasn't meant to be for me there, and I felt, if I'm 4 hours drive, let me see if I can even just return home. So I did. I accepted a position and was fortunate to return back to the United Way of Cleveland.
That's great. So that answers the question of why'd you leave San Diego? But it was a family related and health related type thing. So now you're back in Cleveland.
Right.
You're a mom.
Yeah, eventually.
Eventually you became a mom.
Yes, yes. So I am the mother of three sons.
And then the story gets interesting. As we were talking, you said you took one of your sons to kindergarten before the school year started to
Right,
meet with the teacher.
right.
And what happened when you went there for this meeting?
Yes. My youngest son, for whatever reason, was a little apprehensive about starting school. So I reached out to the school and I said, is it possible for me to set up, like a meet and greet, just kind of an informal meet and greet with my son and the teacher? So ironically, another woman had done the same. And this woman's name is Michelle. And Michelle had done the same for her son. So this was 13 years ago, and Michelle and her son, and myself and my son met with this kindergarten teacher, and the boys really hit it off. And I thought Michelle was a lovely person, and we both just kind of commented like, "Wow, our sons seem to really get along." And and she also has three sons, and that was kind of it. The boys hit it off. They started school. And then they continued school. They played some sports together. I would see Michelle, and wave or sit with her. And over the course of time, I had found out or I had discovered that she is legally blind, and that was hereditary, something I believe she inherited through her father. And I knew in other ways she was ill, but I didn't know to what degree or to any specifics. You're sitting at a ball game or you run into somebody, you don't want to say, "So what's wrong with you anyways?" I was just being respectful, and she's such a joy to be around, So that's kind of where that, transpired. And then the story continues.
Right. So with this seemingly random act, nice person, your kids are having fun. That's what matters, that your children are getting along.
Right,
So you know Michelle, you knew who
right,
she was, you interacted socially at a distance, but you weren't
correct.
really friends. You didn't associate, do the home and home parties and that type of
Nope.
stuff.
No, never went to lunch. I didn't know her middle name. I don't know her birthday. I still don't know her birthday.
That's
I
getting
know,
interesting.
yikes. I should find that out.
So we get to summer of 2019. One of her sons is graduating from high school, and
Correct.
we all get, when that happens, invitations to, depending on how big the school is,
Numerous.
200 plus
Correct.
invitations for graduation parties. Well, we don't go to all of them, but you
Right.
went to this one. What happened?
It's impossible. And as much as we would like to, but like I said, she has three sons, and her oldest son had graduated from high school, and this was the summer around July of 2019, and it was very hot. And I happened to sit down next to her at the picnic table, and she had made a statement to me. She said, "Please say a prayer that I get put on the transplant list at the Cleveland Clinic." And I looked at her and I said, "Of course I'll say a prayer." And I said, "And when you get put on that list, let me know and I'll go get tested to see if I'm a match." And I tell you, Frank, it gives me chills because I heard my voice. I'm like, okay, that was my voice. I heard my voice say those words, and yet they weren't my words. The words were divine. It
Hmm.
was a divine spirit that entered into me and came out of my mouth. And she looked at me and she said, "Really?" And I go, "Yeah." And I was very casual, very matter of fact. And then I got up, and like I said, it was July, and I had spent the time there, and I got up and I went home.
Hmm.
And honestly, thought nothing of it, thought nothing more of it until later on.
So this was on trying to get on a kidney transplant list. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay, that can take forever, as we all know.
Yes. And then it was like I was realizing, like I had said, I didn't know specifics about her illness, but that was kind of like oh, okay, this is what's going on with her, in addition to the blindness.
Right. So you make the statement. this divine intervention.
Hmm.
Let me know, I'll get tested. So
Right.
September rolled around, 2, 3 months
Oh,
later.
yeah.
Now you get a
Yeah.
phone call from Michelle. What happened in that phone call?
Right. So, right. Right. So a few months later, I get this phone call from Michelle, and she said, "Hey, I got put on the transplant list. Were you serious about willingness to get tested to see if you were a match?" I got to tell you, of course, I'm like, "Huh? Oh, that's right. I
I did
did
say
say
that.
that. I did say that. I know I wasn't having a cocktail at that grad party, so I'm like, oh yeah, I did say that." And I said, "Absolutely." I said, again, I'm very casual. "Okay, yeah, just send me the information and I'll check it out and see what I need to do." Click. That was it.
Okay, so you contact Cleveland Clinic, they contact you. How does this work?
Correct. Right. So that was interesting too. So that was September of 2019, and I reached out to the Cleveland Clinic, and they're ginormous, as you can imagine. But I did have the number for their living donor center, and I reached out and I said that I wanted to be a living donor, and I was willing to be a living donor. I mean, those two words alone. Like
Yes.
I'm very casual about this whole process. Living donor. And I reached out and they were, kind of going to set me up with the testing. And then I was like, whoa, 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 I have a specific person that's on your list that I want to see if I'm a match for. And they were like, oh, okay. So they scheduled me for some testing. Actually, it was just a series of blood tests
Hmm.
initially. So I went to a facility and had a number of vials drawn. And again, I kind of just did my part and that was it. And I kind of moved on with my day and with my life until December.
Until December. Now, other than the blood tests prior to December, did they go through a series of why are you doing this?
No, no, not at that time. Not
Not at
yet.
that time. Okay.
Not yet. No. So the next part of the story is, and I know the exact date, December 6th,
December 6th.
2019. December 6th, 2019. I was driving in my car and I was getting a call from a number I didn't know, but the first part of it kind of looked like the Cleveland Clinic. So I thought, yeah, I'm just going to answer this. So I answered it. And the woman says, "Hi, this is Lisa from the Cleveland Clinic, and I am calling with your test results." And, you know, okay,
Okay.
right, right. And that is like kind of broad and vague. And me being me at my stage of life, me being a female, I'm expecting anemia, you're low in vitamin D. I mean, just kind of the typical stuff. And I said, "Oh, okay, here's me forgetting everything that's really going on or about to happen." And she says, "I got to ask you first." She said, "Is this your sister?" And I said, "No." I said, "This is a friend." And she said, "Oh my God, you're 100% match. You're her
Oh,
match." And I mean, right? This is almost 2 years ago, and I'm still like this. And she said that, and the next words out of my mouth were, "Thank you, Jesus. I knew I was. I knew I was her match." So, yeah, so I'm driving in the car. It's incredibly emotional. It was December 6th was actually 2 days after my late mother's birthday. So that's kind of an emotional, sentimental time for me to begin with. So I hung up with her and well, actually, I will tell you. I said to her, she said to me, and we will not let her know because they treat, with HIPAA, they
yes,
treated her as a separate patient.
correct.
And she goes, "Well, I just want you to know we are not going to let her know that you are her match." And I cut her off and I said, "She's my next phone call."
Hmm.
So I had made the decision because Michelle lives only maybe 2 or 3 miles from me. And I drove straight to her house instead of making the phone call.
Hmm. So what was that like?
Well, I had been crying in the car, like I'm about to do now. And her oldest son, whose grad party I had gone to, was home for college. And because this was a Friday, and he opened the door and he looked at me. He goes, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Is your mother home?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, "Come on in." And I went right up to her and I said, "Oh my God, I'm your match." I said,
God.
"The clinic just called me. I'm your match." And we both, I mean, here's this woman for a good part of her life because of this hereditary disease she has, which is actually very rare and is actually in her liver. I wouldn't say she was preparing to die because that's not who she is. She's been looking for ways to live. And here am I, this woman she met in a kindergarten room who lives 3 miles from her. And Frank, I was the only one ever tested
Oh my
for her,
God.
and I was her match. So her son took a photo of us hugging right in front of her Christmas tree that
On
morning,
that day.
that
Wow.
day, December 6th, 2019.
Wow. That's incredible to be the only one tested
The only one
to,
tested, and
yeah.
and I was, as you know, so casual about it.
Yeah.
I guess and I still am about the whole process to this day, but it does overwhelm me, as you can tell.
Yeah. I imagine it would. So
Right.
now they've got the match.
Hmm.
All right. And I haven't been a medic in the military way back when. I understand they're not going to tell each other. Now you can tell the
Right.
person, but
Which I did.
which you chose to do, but they
Right.
won't because of
Right.
all the HIPAA stuff. So now you have to go through the intense part of this. Now, so then what happens? You the match, you want to go through it. What
Right.
do you got to go through?
Again, me being me and somewhat casual, I'm like, oh, 1 + 1 is 2. I'm her match. Let's see, it's December 6th. We have the holidays coming up. So I'm thinking we're just going to schedule this in there. I'm going to look at my work calendar, see what works for everybody at the clinic. And they're like, okay, it's not that easy. It's not that easy. We're talking about body parts, major surgery, etc. So the next step, actually, they set me up in January for 2 full days of the best gosh darn physical in the entire world that money could never buy. I was thoroughly checked out by anyone that wore a white coat in the Cleveland Clinic. And it was pretty intense in a good way. I had met with a dermatologist, had full body scans. I mean, they were very, very good, and I obviously appreciate about making sure that my health, I'm in my 50s. So they wanted to make sure that my health was not going to be in jeopardy, that I was, as healthy as I appeared to be beyond the blood work.
Hmm.
So I went through 2 full days of testing, and I remember a few times I was asked, "So, how long have you thought about being a living donor?" And I was like, "Oh yeah, those 2 words." And to their credit, they didn't look at me like, "Okay, you really need to take some time with this," because they could tell that this was bigger than me. This was bigger than Michelle. And this was meant to be
Hmm.
spiritually, physically, emotionally. It was like the divine all coming together. And although they did recommend I might want to look into what the actual procedure is going to be, which I did, which I did.
I interviewed someone a few years ago who talked about a kidney transplant, and particularly since it's not a relative. What was the psychological testing and questioning they were going through with you?
Um, yeah, it was a woman psychiatrist, and she was actually one of the ones who asked me that question. Um, and it's weird. I get so emotional, but this is all very recent. The one question she did ask was if, because there's no guarantees, if if the kidney was rejected or if she did not survive, would you regret your decision? I said, absolutely not. I'm not going into this thinking I'm going to lose the game. Okay.
Hmm.
Because, that's something that, my mother had always taught us, yes, you can, and thinking positively. So it never even crossed my mind. But to answer that question, I had absolutely no hesitancy. And I was asked that quite a bit.
I would
Um,
imagine.
I was asked that quite a bit. And, how close are you guys? And I'm like, well, and as I sit here today, I'm like, I still don't know her birthday or her middle name. But yeah, I mean, those types of questions, and that was their main concern, I think, really making sure, although they did impress upon me, and I'll tell you this, they said, I have, up until the moment they put me under, to say,
Stop.
stop, I can't do this. I mean, was that reassuring? Kind of, but I knew in my heart I knew what I was meant to do. And I believe I had shared with you when we spoke earlier, I in my heart feel that
Mhm.
I was born with Michelle's kidney. I feel I was born with Michelle's kidney, and it was just a matter of God and the universe saying, it's time.
Meant to be. Had the all these random acts were not random. So now we're
No.
getting now it's getting real.
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah. It's getting real.
so they
So
were
I'll tell
gonna
you, if I
go
could
ahead.
say, like when
Go
I
ahead. Go
when
ahead.
I was talking to the surgeon, before I forget this part, because I don't even know where this came from either. I'm just going to put that out there. So I'm talking to the surgeon, and he's like, "Well, not everybody's kidneys are symmetrical." And I'm like, "Oh yeah, that makes sense because we are all imperfect beings." And he said, "So we like to leave the larger kidney with the donor." And I said, "Oh, that's Tom Brady." Oh, Tom Brady. I have three sons. Yeah, I'm a football fan, etc. But I don't even know where that came from. And he looked at me and he goes, "The football player?" And I go, "Yeah." And he goes, "Okay, that's Tom Brady." So he's like, "Okay, so you're going to keep Tom Brady and da 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 da." And then he goes, "Okay," and then the smaller kidney, and I go, "Baker Mayfield." And he goes, "The football player?" Now, granted, we are at the Cleveland Clinic, so he knew Baker Mayfield, the Cleveland Browns,
We
and
see a trend here.
I know, and I swear, gave no thought to those names, and I'm like, "Baker Mayfield." He goes, "Yeah." So we will give Michelle Baker. Well, I got to tell you, I think Baker's slightly smaller than Tom. So Michelle is not even 5 foot, and I'm 5'6". So my joke was, "Oh, my kidney's going to be too big for her." So which, that's just a joke. And so
Mhm.
when we had decided that, okay, she's going to get Baker Mayfield, I thought, oh, that's perfect. And as I was driving away that day from that 2 days of testing, and I'm like, Tom Brady, Baker Mayfield, where did I come up with that? And then it hit me. It hit me hard that Michelle's son came over to play with my son when they were about 6 or 7 years old. So this is about 12 years ago. And her son showed up dressed exactly like my son,
Oh my
unbeknownst to
God.
them.
With Tom Brady jerseys.
The
Wow.
Tom, yeah, my left kidney. And I was like, oh, I'm like crying in the car. I'm like, oh, I don't know. I didn't even know where that came from. But yeah, so, and when they were little guys, they dressed as Tom Brady.
Incredible. So you're getting ready. Everything's been done. They're going to do this in late January. Is that correct? Initially,
Of 21.
22. Yes, and we all know what
This was,
happened.
yes. So, yeah, we all know what happened in 20, which to us actually was a godsend for us, not to those people who had suffered other setbacks. But in our case in particular, I go through the 2 days of testing and they're like green light, green light, green light. But then they're like, but wait a minute. Her team, because there's two surgical teams. I had no idea. So there's Team Michelle and Team Laura. Well, Team Laura's like, all right, let's go, game on. And Team Michelle's like, wait, 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 wait. Her kidneys were still adequately functioning. So I always equate this to if you're driving on your tires in your car and you still have tread left, you're not going to go buy 4 new tires. You want to ride those babies till they're not safe anymore. Okay, so similar, so you know what I'm saying. So similar with the kidneys, which ultimately pushed it into 2021 this year.
Mhm.
This year.
And so we go through this, her kidneys start to get to that point. When did they reschedule it for?
The original date was January 28th of 2021,
Mhm.
so a couple of months ago. And we then for whatever reason, it just was not meant to be. We were notified that it is going to be moved to March 9th. And so my biggest concern was that because we were catching her, so to speak, pre-dialysis. I mean, this if anybody's listening to this that knows somebody on dialysis or who's on a transplant list, this is almost I mean, I get the goosebumps. This is just unheard of that here's this woman with this illness, one person gets tested, they are her match, and oh, we have a year. Oh, should we have a year or two before we even have to, get going on the surgery? I mean, that type of comfort level insecurity is very, very rare. And I think I had shared with you, I started to feel like this expectant father waiting for her water to break. So we had to
Mhm.
go to the hospital to deliver the baby, which, oh, by the way, is actually my kidney. You know, it's weird how it kind of played out. So they moved it to March 9th. And ironically, our discharge date was March 11th, which was World Kidney Day.
Oh my goodness.
I know. Crazy.
Yes,
Crazy.
everything's
Um,
falling in line here.
Yeah. Oh, and speaking of a line, if I can point out, right before we went to surgery, our boys, who are still friends, but they don't necessarily hang out, they ended up at different high schools. I had asked them to get together for one more picture. And here they are in their Baker Mayfield jerseys, and now they're both 18, seniors in high school.
Mhm.
And you know what? I mean, really, really, it's meant to
It's
be.
incredible.
Meant to
Absolutely.
be.
So you call this process transfer of life, which I
Yes.
love. I love that name for this.
Mm-hmm.
So what was it like actually going into surgery? What do you recall as you're getting ready to go in?
Um, yeah, if I can, I'd like to just show you
Sure.
one more final picture. There's Michelle and I. We are dropped off at because of COVID, we were alone. So her husband and my son dropped us off at the front of the Cleveland Clinic
Mhm.
at 1 in the morning of surgery. And well, I think in a way, even that was kind of weird that, as we're going arm in arm together, and in a few hours she's going to have one of my body parts.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? And I, yes, from early on I began calling it the transfer of life, because the word surgery, yes, that's what it is, but it's so medical. And this was bigger than that. I mean, the doctors and the surgeons were all wonderful, and they certainly played the huge role. But honestly, I give credit to God, and I call this the transfer of life. Like I said, I was born with her kidney, and she was now getting it back, which would truly save her life, which is overwhelming for me.
Right.
But go ahead.
Now, when they had said to you they were going to use the smaller
Oh,
kidney, the
good
Baker
point.
Mayfield kidney,
Good
and then
point.
and then they came back to you and said, "Wait a minute."
Yeah, that was a big timeout on the field. I found that out the week before. So I went March 2nd for my pre-op. I go meet with the surgeon, everything. I'm feeling good and all the blood tests. Finally it's coming up. Now, mind you, this started in 2019.
Mhm.
Now we are at March 2nd, 2021. And the surgeon says to me, well, we've had what did we call it? He didn't call it a game time decision, but that's what I called it.
Right,
He
right.
said, we are going to give Michelle Tom Brady. And those were his words, which I thought was kind of funny that they started to use my
Your
wording.
terms.
They're like, we're going to give Michelle Tom Brady. In full honesty, I got a little nervous because I thought, whoa, 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 wait a minute. But then, if you all can recall, Tom Brady was also traded.
Right.
And what did Tom Brady do? He marched right into Tampa Bay and won the Super Bowl.
That's right.
And that thought came to me, and I thought, Tom Brady was traded and he won the Super Bowl. This is awesome. So then he says to me about Baker, that so you're Baker, and he explained to me there were medical reasons why, and physiological or anatomy related,
Right.
and which is why they had to make that decision. And my question to him was, listen, is Baker working hard for me? Yeah. Baker know the game plan? Yeah. They said, you're going to be fine. And I was like, then let's go. So they did. They made a game time. They called an audible. They
Right.
called an audible.
Change the play at the line.
Oh my gosh. And I was just confident in my defense. And I was like, we got this.
We can do this.
We
That's
can do
incredible.
this. Yeah.
Now, you had mentioned to me, I think when you were in the waiting period, your sister, an
Oh, yeah.
interfaith chaplain who lives in San Francisco,
Hmm.
and she's probably like my sister, sends many letters and many flyers and many things, most of which I say, oh, that's nice. But
Yeah.
one caught your attention. What was that?
Yeah. She's so good about encouraging me and informing me and just exposing me to different things. And on this one, this was in between the initial surgery date and the actual surgery date. She had sent me this link, and it was for Sacred Stories. She said, oh, you should submit your story for this. And, like I said, she submitted other things, and either I just wasn't feeling it or whatever. But for some reason, I looked at it, and I liked the Sacred Stories idea. And I looked at it, and I looked at it a little more, and I thought, I can do this. I can do this. And I sat down and I started to write, and it just started to flow out of me. This is part of the story. There's an arc before that story where it kind of made more sense and I was really feeling it. So I sent, and I had a wonderful help from a friend who's an editor. And I remember on February 22nd, I hit the send button on my computer, and I remember thinking, on a wing and a prayer, there you go. And that was probably like at 10 in the morning, and around 6 o'clock that night, on the same night, I get a response from Sacred Stories. Now, the submission deadline was March 31st, so usually if you hear anything, whatever. But that night I heard, oh, wow, it's a yes from us. And I'm so emotional today, but I'm like, oh. So I was in my kitchen and I was like crying again. And I thought, oh my goodness, the universe is truly coming together for me. And I just was filled with so much gratitude and so much joy. So yeah, Sacred Stories Publishing, which I know you're very familiar with, which is how you and I got connected.
That's correct.
Because of your story. That my story, or part of this story, my story will be in their Mayhem to Miracles, which launches October 5th.
Exactly. Now, for those people watching who don't know Sacred Stories, it's a publishing house. Ariel Patricia and Kathleen Cavanis, who goes by Kat, are the two principals, and they're doing a 3-book series, and they're for transformational. One was Chaos to Clarity, one was Crappy to Happy, and this is the third of the 3-book series. And your story will be in
Miracles.
Mayhem to Miracles.
And their third and final series. I mean, you know what I'm saying? This again was just all in alignment. It was all in alignment and meant to be. Because I tell you, I've submitted other things before. And, I get the rejection. And, so when I got that email back from them at 6, I thought, wow, that was either a really fast rejection or a delayed thank you for your submission,
Correct.
And I was not expecting, oh, wow, yes, from us. So.
Yes. And I know Kat very, very well, and that doesn't surprise me at all. And she's very quick to see, yes, this has value. This is a story that's transformational. That's amazing. I love them. They're very, very good. You'll enjoy the experience.
Oh, I am enjoying it.
Now you're 2 months post transfer of life.
Correct.
2 months.
Right.
What when you came out of surgery? What did they tell you? Okay, now don't do these things.
You know what? Because I kept asking about that too, and it's actually 6 weeks. 6 weeks ago yesterday.
6 weeks. Wow.
6 weeks only. So it's only been 6 weeks. And I just wanted, let me add quickly, because this is part of the story too. So the morning of surgery, I went and hiked 6 miles in a local forest in our community. And as I was hiking by myself, I found a rock. And on this rock, it was painted the words, "Yes, you can."
Wow.
And that was my mother. Those were my mother's words to her 8 children constantly. So I had that rock with me when I checked in, and then I passed it to Michelle because I was discharged 2 days before her, and I handed off that rock to her. I said, "Now my mother's here for you." So their instructions post transfer of life for me were pretty, I don't want to say typical, but no driving for 4 weeks, just stuff like that. I mean, so I'm not. I mean, I'm probably not supposed to talk about this kind of stuff, but I'm not on any pills. There are no limitations. I feel no differently that I have one kidney. People ask that, and I'm answering, and I'm fine to answer whatever. But I'm like, well, I didn't really know I had two. You know what I mean? It's not like you take turns. So I'm incredibly healthy. I'm back to hiking 6 miles, and I'm working out. I feel very grateful for being chosen, for this opportunity to save someone's life.
Right. That's amazing. The giving part is so rewarding. That
Oh,
out of how many billions of people on the planet,
right.
you're the fit.
And I was the only one tested.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
How's Michelle doing?
She's doing wonderfully. She's healing as well. Her process is going to be different because, as you know, or as I've shared, she had a disease or has a disease. But the kidney, Tom Brady got in there pretty much marching down the field, hasn't missed a beat from the moment it was put in her. So she's doing really well.
It's incredible.
She's a little rock star, that thing. She's not even 5 feet tall, and she's such a dynamo. I just love her.
That's amazing. That's just a tremendous story of transformation for you, going the route you took to
Yeah.
get there is back to when you and I spoke. Mark O'Brien, a good friend of ours, who is the first one who told me, "Frank, there are no random acts.
Right.
Everything happens for a reason. It's
Right.
just, are you paying attention?"
Be aware. And before the surgery, before I actually got tested, I had said to I had asked my 3 sons, I said, I would like to do this, and I want to involve you in that decision. I need your support. I mean, you are my family. And they were, "Absolutely, Mom, we love her too." And so then when I found out, when I told them that I was her match, it was like the Browns had won the Super Bowl. I mean, they were just ecstatic. They were so supportive and so happy that this was going to be able to happen.
It's amazing. And when you have the support, it's even better. Then it sort of validates what it is you need to do.
Right.
Absolutely.
And yes, and my dear father, who's 89, when I called and told him the news, he was tearing up, and he said, "Your mother and I love you and are so proud of you." And now my mother's been passed for a number of years, but he always includes her in his sentiments. So it was very meaningful.
Now, Laura, we're just about out of time here. With all you've been through on this journey, what last words, thoughts do you want to leave with the viewers around the world?
So I did give this some thought, and I guess for me, my thoughts would be sometimes you just need to be still and surrender and have that faith. Because like you and I have said continually, there are no random acts. And, if you sit back and you're still and you surrender, you're going to receive a lot of good in the world, which will ultimately pass through you to serve others as well.
I love the story. And thank you so much for reaching out and telling this to me, because it's something that needs to be heard. The world needs to hear this kind of thing. Now, as I said, ladies and gentlemen, we're just about out of time. I want to thank Laura one more time for this incredible story, that there are no random acts and that the universe is sending you signs, and keep your eyes open and your ears open. And the path becomes very clear if
Yes.
you're following the signs.
Yes.
So no matter what life throws at you, ladies and gentlemen, and as you just heard, life is going to throw a lot at you.
Mhm.
Please do three things. I say this every week. Look up, get up, and never, ever give up.
Mhm.
Pick up the pieces, start moving forward, and better times and better people like Laura will come into your life. It happens. I didn't believe it at first either, but it happens. If you'd like more information on Laura, you can contact me directly on my website, frankzaccari.com, or send me an email through LinkedIn, and I'll make sure it gets to her. I will also send her a link when this goes public, and she can post it in all the places that Laura puts out her own information. Now, you can see this show on Roku TV or in my YouTube page, Frank Zaccari. And again, Laura will get a link and she'll post it too. If you go to the YouTube link and to watch it there, please subscribe. Now, let me leave you with this, as I do every week. None of us are in this alone. And the secret to walking on water is to know where the rocks are.
Mm.
And today, Laura showed us where many of those rocks are.
Mm.
Join me again next week, and we'll discuss another life-altering event. Laura, one more time, thank you so much.
Thank you.